It's showtime.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
Washington is fundamentally corrupt. There are more words in the IRS code than there are in the Bible.
Made in America, heard round the world. You're listening to Blunt Force Truth. I'm Chuck Woolery, along with my co-host, Mark Young. And the coup in Congress continues, Mark.
Chuck, I got to tell you something. It's just occurred to me. If Joseph Stalin and E.T. had a love child,
it would be Adam Schiff.
Who would it look like?
That's very funny. Yeah.
Adam
you know, Rich,
Schiff.
it's actually no joke. I mean, Adam Schiff has been leaking to the media. He does it all the time. And the media covers for him, swears that he doesn't. But he's like their go-to guy. And Jerry Nadler does the same thing. And they're both go-to guys, and the media cover for him. So we have this Praetorian Guard that just protects the Democrats no matter what they do. And I'll tell you something. They have called us, forget Trump, they have called us Nazis. They've called us homophobes, xenophobes, racist. You name everything that you can possibly call someone. That's
Fascist.
What the Democrat
Don't
Party
forget
has
fascist.
called everybody who voted for Trump. And they're going to have to come through about 68 million people to get to him, because I'm PO'd, which is a service expression.
No, I agree with you, man. This is unacceptable what is happening here.
It is.
And you look at,
It's Stalin-like is what it is.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you who it is. It is Stalin's deputy premier, a guy by the name of Beria. And Beria's famous quote was, "Show me the man and I will show you the crime."
Right.
And Beria's entire modus operandi was you would target the individual, you would accuse them of the crimes, you would fill in the blanks later.
Well, that's what they've done from the beginning. They have constantly accused Trump of crimes that they swear they have evidence for. 2 years later, after Adam Schiff said, we have evidence of all this stuff and all this misbehavior and illegal things that Trump has done, he's never presented 1 ounce of evidence, not one. And so now they're going to do it. And since Mueller's investigation is going nowhere, that they think that it's not going to do anything, then they have to step in and do the job themselves, because they're the oversight committee and that's their job.
Now, Mueller, if you remember, Mueller was the great white hope earlier in the year.
Well, you know, Ty Cobb, who was, I want to start to say Clinton was Trump's lawyer, has said that Mueller is a fabulous guy. And what his job was to exonerate Trump. That's why he's the former lawyer of Trump, I think.
But they bring Cohen in. So they bring a guy in who's going to do 3 years in prison for lying to Congress to testify in front of Congress.
I know.
Because apparently now he's reformed. But when they bring him in, he still exonerated Trump.
Well, it is absolutely insane what's going on. It's so difficult to get to the bottom of what's happening unless you are astute enough, as I believe you and I are. You know, it's funny. I was listening to Hillary Clinton denounce that she was going to run for president today, and I thought, well, that's Mark and me. She said, I'm not going to run for president, but I'm going to let my voice be heard. Well, you and I aren't going to run for president either, but we're going to let our voices be heard.
I'm running for president. I told you I was going to run for president on a Democratic ticket.
Right.
we agreed. I was going to change my name to Paco Mohammed Young.
Paco Mohammed Young?
Yes. I want to be a little Paco Mohammed, because I want to be a little more politically accepted. It's
There's
a little more,
you know, some kind of racist undertone there someplace, or overtone.
Okay, if Robert Francis O'Rourke,
yeah, can be Beto, right?
Can be Beto O'Rourke, why can't I be Paco?
Of course you can, and that's what I'll refer to you from now on as Paco.
I'm self-identifying as Paco, and you'd be a racist if you told me I wasn't, because I've self-identified.
Hey, you know what? I thought of something today. Speaking of racist, not that has any connection with this, but I was thinking of this. See, just as an aside, folks, I'm reading today, or yesterday, or the beginning of the week, sometime. This is the beginning of the week, but I'm reading that the Olympics have decided that trans men can compete as women, and trans women can compete as men.
Right.
So, is it right? Okay. So I'm thinking, I have a friend named Bruce Jenner that I've known all my life. Okay, since the '60s, we've known each other, and he's now Caitlyn Jenner. So I figure he won in, I started to say 1776, in 1976. He won the decathlon in 1976.
You're old. You're not that old.
I'm not that old. And so I figured 50 years later, I think Caitlyn Jenner can actually come back and compete against the women and probably take home the gold for the United States once again.
Hey, I'm thinking I could put on a dress and go in the Olympics under weightlifting.
I mean, it's what is going on in the world? Forget our country, the world. It's just the left has taken over the entire world.
It's insanity.
It is insanity. And all the people who said that Venezuela was like the high water mark of socialism. It was the best you could possibly be. And then now it's fallen apart. And they say, well, it wasn't really.
Well, I mean, think about
Ocasio-Cortez. I mean, yeah, I hate to keep bringing her up because she really is nothing, but she's by the way been nominated as the intellectual leader of the Democrat Party now by someone on one of the Sunday shows on Sunday, and anyway, she was all for Maduro and everything else, and they asked her a question and said, well, what do you think's wrong with it? She just evaded it. She just can't express what's wrong with Venezuela now. It just wasn't done right. It's never done right, ever.
Well, it's because
the progressive movement never does right.
It's because we weren't running it.
Well, look, I'll give you an example.
Socialism works when we run it. We've just not had our chance.
I'll give you an example of how progressives work. So we started off with Obamacare 8 years, our last president, Obamacare. That was going to fix everything in healthcare. But now Obamacare doesn't work at all, and they're blaming the Republicans for it when none of them ever even voted for it. But Obamacare doesn't work. Now they want to go to Medicare for all. Because Obamacare doesn't work. Program. But Obamacare was supposed to be the answer to everything too, and it obviously wasn't. So it's little steps all the way to Medicare. And then Medicare, it's the same system that the British have. It's the same system that Canada has. It's the same system that the French have. They hate it, and the left says they love it, but they don't. And so we're just marching right down the same road. And that's all I got to say about that.
What did President Reagan say were the 9 scariest words in the English language?
Yeah, I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. The government doesn't add value to anything.
Well, the government, kind of screws up everything. There's very few things that the government really does well. And the things that they do well, they do very well. But by and large, they can't compete with private business. All they can do is control private business, which is what they try to do all the time. And by controlling it and regulating it, they try to compete with it.
Now, if you're listening to us live right now on Twitter, reach down, hit that little retweet button right on the bottom of the window so that everybody gets to see it. And by all means, send us your comments, your questions. Rusty's standing by. He will pick out the interesting questions. I don't know. He doesn't usually read the insults, so maybe you should read some of the
I've got one Rusty. To start you off, Mark. I know you had you've got a name. What was your name that you want to run for? As president?
Paco Mohammed Young.
Okay, Live Celebrity Guide suggests a new name for you. How about Whoopi Goldberg?
That was taken.
Okay,
I think that's
fair. All right. Catherine Hardison says, "Hey Chuck, I met you at LAX years ago. I was a flight attendant. Wanted to say hi. I'm sure you remember her. She was wonderful."
I absolutely do. Yes, yeah, the one in the blue dress.
Yes. And at Housewives Fan 13 says, "Why are we not marching on Washington right now?"
Well, we should be marching on what. It's funny though. Republicans don't march on anything. Conservatives certainly don't march. It's only the left that marches, and I'm not sure why that is, but it's like that's all they do.
We lost the Tea Party momentum. The Tea Party did that.
The Tea Party was basically destroyed by the Obama administration. They just ripped it apart. So maybe the Tea Party will come back. Maybe it hasn't gone anywhere. Maybe it'll just rejuvenate and come back and for the 2020 election and show up again. I hope they do, frankly.
Tea Party was great. Chuck, I want to stick with your comment. You were talking about one of our favorite people, AOC.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Her mother, just left New York and moved to Florida to get out of the New York taxes.
Well, but it's amazing to me because a lot of people leave California and come to Texas, where I am now, and I'm one of them. But I didn't come for taxes, which shows you how bright I am. I just moved here to bass fish. But it's been a great boon to me. I had no idea it was going to be better. But you find all of these lefties, progressive liberals, who can't stand the heat with the taxes anymore in New York, in Chicago or Illinois, California, and they move to red states where, they're thriving, and they bring their politics with them and just create the same environment they escaped from. And that's what's happening everywhere, which is kind of odd.
But you bring up a good point, Chuck. Think about how many people are fighting to sneak across the border to get into America.
Well, we're such a bad place, so why would they do that?
But once they get over here, they try to turn us back into the dump that they left.
It makes absolutely no sense. Hey, Rusty, I want you to do me a favor if you can, while you're producing this. Excuse me, folks. I want you to look up the name of the guy who created Walk Away. I want to talk about him a little bit. Can you look him up for me?
You got it.
All right, thank you.
So, you know what? I'm going to say this is almost biblical, Chuck.
Want to hear this?
Well, what does the Bible say about a dog returning to its own vomit?
Vomit, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that not what is happening?
Yeah. It's very, very strange when people can't learn from the experience. I don't know what that is. There's probably some psychological term for it, but it's like, I hate this. I don't like what's happening to me. They're taking advantage of me. So I'm moving to a place that is not doing the same thing to their people. And I'm going to live and thrive there, but then I'm going to vote to change it to what I just left. It makes absolutely no sense. I don't get it. What is his name? Okay, Brandon Straka was on Mark Levin Sunday. Mm-hmm. Fascinating show. Absolutely fascinating. He's a gay man who was crushed, absolutely crushed when Trump won. He thought it was the end of his world. And it went on for, probably maybe a year, something like that. He was just, couldn't get over it and everything else. And then so his babysitter of a long time called him and he said, we don't have anything in common. You're for Trump and everything. She said, I want you to do something for me. I want you to just go listen to this thing. I forget what it was, but she gave me an example of something to listen to. He listened to it and was astute enough to say, I never knew that. And it was something about CNN crushing Trump over something he didn't need to be crushed over, which was just about anything that he says mm-hmm. or does. And all of a sudden he said, I'm going to start my own research. And he started doing his own research into what the media was doing to Trump and if Trump really deserved that kind of treatment, and found out that 100% no, he did not. As he did it, he got more angry and more angry and more angry, and just said, I am going to walk away from this whole leftist thing that's dominating our media and our culture. And think about this. He's a gay guy who is making this, and he's very vocal, and he just walked away from it. And he said, I'm going to create a hashtag walk away, and that's who I'm going to be. And I'm going to encourage other people to do it as I learn more. And he's very, very competitive when it comes to expressing his opinion and point of view of Trump. He loves Trump now, thinks Trump's the greatest thing that ever happened because all the smoke has cleared away and he can see what is really going on. And what is really going on is a travesty to the American people. It's a travesty to this country.
And you know what, Patrick, Patrick, one of our producers is online. Patrick, note that name and let's reach out to him and see if we can bring him on as a guest on the show.
One of the best guests I've seen on Mark Levin, and Mark has a lot of good people on, but that was a really good one. I was quite surprised.
Chuck, you and I have had a couple of other gay males who have been on this show who left the Democratic Party and became Republicans. And if you remember the one guy that we had on, he was one of the founders of the Gay Pride Parade.
Right. Oh, yes.
Out on the East Coast. Right. And they practically tortured this guy mm-hmm. because he voted for President Trump and admitted it. They drummed him out of the gay pride parade. He was no longer qualified to march as a gay man because he voted for the president.
Well, look, I've experienced that. Not that I'm a gay man, obviously I'm not, but
if you were, you would be fabulous because you are an awesome decorator. I'm going to tell you, folks, this guy has the best taste in decorating, and he makes gourmet pizza and bolognese sauce. So
I do make probably
Not
the
that
best
I'm
bolognese I
stereotyping.
ever tasted. You're right.
By the way, does he make a gourmet coffee? Because I could really use some coffee right now, Mark.
Yeah,
he has.
I
the
do. I have a
coffee
cafe.
maker he's got the coffee maker to the gods.
I do.
But to take that coffee maker and make it work, you need Covfefe coffee. And I want you to notice here, if you can see this, folks, see the little silhouette of the president on the top?
Yeah,
This is actually MAGA blend dark roast Covfefe coffee. Not
So
just
it's kind of like a French roast. It's very, very bold. It's a wonderful coffee.
It is. Yes.
Put that in your Jura and see what happens. You won't believe it. You know, it's fine. I gotta tell everybody this story, okay? Because it was a surprise to me. It was. I beg your pardon? Oh, okay.
How would I get that coffee first, Chuck?
All right. Tell him how you get the coffee, and I'll tell you my story.
Oh my God. Well,
I
Rusty,
just stepped all over our sponsor.
well, Russ, it's interesting that you asked that question.
Yeah.
So if you want to get the coffee, you go to makingcoffeegreat.com. You go to makingcoffeegreat.com. You use the discount code BFT, like
That's
Blunt Force
Bravo, Tango, Bravo, BFT, Bravo, Foxtrot, Tango.
Bravo, Foxtrot, Tango, or Blunt Force Truth.
Yeah.
And you use that, and you will save $5 on 2 bags of MAGA Blend Dark Roast. Folks, I want you to go get this stuff. Seriously, I want you to go do this. Here's the deal. What you don't know is a lot of the coffee companies out there are giving their money to liberal causes, places like
That is
Planned
absolutely true. That's true.
That's legit. So you're buying some of this stuff. I mean, especially, places like Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, these guys, their money goes to support conservative causes. Their money goes to support conservative broadcast, just like Blunt Force Truth. These are the people, if you're drinking coffee, you have no business drinking any coffee. But the Covfefe coffee, MAGA blend, makingcoffeegreat.com.
That's right. And
Now, your story.
There's somebody with a donkey on a hill someplace in Venezuela who's harvesting coffee. So my
cousin Juan Mohammed Young actually picks the beans. So go ahead with your story.
So I'm in Williams-Sonoma about, 15, 16 years ago, maybe a little longer. And I need a coffee maker. And so I go through this place, and there's like 5 or 6 coffee makers. And they're all kind of big. I've never had one quite like this. And so I asked this guy, I said, which is the best one here? And he said, oh, this one in the middle. And he said, here, I'll give you some. He had a little thing. He gave me a taste of it. And I said, God, that's awesome. What is that? He said, it's just a coffee maker. It's just the best in the world. And I said, well, I'll have one of those. So he packaged it up and sent me to the front. And so the woman said, well, that'll be $3,500. I lost my breath. I went, what? It was nice, but it didn't look like it was that much. And she said, well, you will not regret this. I said, are you kidding? I already regret it. So it was back when I was making lots of money. So I just shelled out the $3,500, which is stupid. Not really. And it has been, I still have it. It still works great. I use it all the time. It does create probably the best coffee on earth as far as I'm concerned. And you don't have to spend that much. There are other coffee makers by Jura that are different. I don't mean to do a commercial for Jura. It's just that I've had such a great experience with it. And once Kristen tasted it, she went out and bought her own for her little place that she stays behind the business over here. Then her ex-husband went out and bought a $10,000 one. Oh my gosh!
And I make my Covfefe coffee with the French press that you bought at my house.
And then there's the French press, which that you can't miss with a French press. It's the best. It really is good. Not as good as my coffee maker, but it's the next best thing is a French press, and they're like under $20.
Yeah, I've got one that you bought.
Yeah, right.
Because
Right,
Chuck, you don't understand. Let's not explain to people. Chuck comes and stays at my house, but Chuck's a coffee snob. So when he
but I've
comes over
learned to be a coffee snob over the years. It didn't just happen.
So he comes over to our house and we have, a K-cup machine there. And he's like,
Yeah.
what is that?
I cannot drink this, it's a puke. I can't
He's
drink
like, that is, you expect me to drink a dump in a cup? So he has to go out to the store. It's very embarrassing when your guests come and they say, I'm sorry, your home isn't decent enough for me to live in. I have to go out to a store and buy a French press and a pizza stone.
And a pizza. Gotta have one of those. Every house needs one. I've also bought knives for you. I bought pans for you. I mean, I'm trying to clean your kitchen up.
There was even a time, folks, I'm going to tell you about even a time that was even worse. There was a time where Chuck came and cleaned my closet out.
I did. I did. You cannot own these things anymore. You got to get rid of them. It's like half his closet was empty.
So Chuck is a great. His home is exquisite. He is an amazing decorator, and he has a great sense of style.
And you're very kind.
He came over and he looked in my closet and he pulled out a shirt and he said, "This looks like something you would wear to a crime scene." And then he pulled the next one out and he goes, "And this is what you wear when you return to the scene of the crime."
That's right. And this is what the victim wore.
It was an ugly ordeal, and my wife was so supportive of him. That's what made it worse.
She was. She knew. Yeah.
It was an ugly thing, but he changed my style of dressing forever.
Yeah, I did.
And introduced me to Gucci loafers.
He used to say, I'm going to New York for a meeting. I said, you can't show up in New York with cowboy boots on, okay? You got to put something that looks halfway decent that people can relate to. You're not that brilliant.
So I walked into a meeting. I literally went to a meeting in New York. I was wearing a pair of snakeskin cowboy boots with a suit. And the guy,
of course, if you come from Texas or something, you're in the oil business, that's different. That's fine. You can do that then.
And this guy walks in the meeting. He goes, "Well, where'd you leave your horse?" And I looked at him. I'm like, "I left my horses in the corral at my house when I left this morning."
He did have a horse in his corral in Michigan. That's true.
I'm like, "Why? Did you hear something about my horses?" And the guy looks at me and goes, "You really have horses, don't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I really have horses." He goes, "I really look like a jackass, don't I?" I'm like, "I'm going to let you slide right now." But
I look mostly like Mr. Ed.
So AOC, Chuck, her mom fled Florida to get out of the New York taxes that her daughter's supporting.
Right.
AOC moved into a new condo. Now, remember, AOC is very socialist, right?
Well, she is a socialist. Sure.
Right. Her new condo has private masseuses, a $50,000 golf simulator, saunas, several saunas, private gym, trainers. But the end, she's also against using anything with fossil fuel, right?
No. She is a prevaricator like everybody on the left is. They're not against any of this stuff. They're actually for all of it, but they want to make you unhappy about your life. And so in order to make you unhappy about your life, do you realize, I mean, please, folks, think about this. The Democrats are constantly putting us in a position of crisis. Everything is a crisis. No matter how well we're doing, no matter how well the economy is doing, no matter how well you're doing as an individual, there's a crisis abroad that you just aren't aware of. And you need to be aware of it so that you can worry just like they do and just, rip your hair out and not be happy just like they are. So this whole thing about her not being a fan of fossil fuels or anything, it's just something to make you unhappy. To make you, they're not for this. Do you honestly believe that people are going to give up their cars, their airplanes, they refit all the buildings? I mean, it's stupid. There's no one on earth who really believes that anyone believes this at this day and age, ever. This is primitivism. This is going back to the 16th century.
The hypocrisy of it, though. AOC.
Well, of course it's hypocrisy.
Looking at her campaign finance bills, and I'm going to get to her campaign finances here in a second, but looking at her campaign finances, she ordered 1,049 Uber rides that was charged to the campaign at a cost of $23,000.
I mean, this is Leo DiCaprio kind of stuff where you got your own private jet, you're running around, and Al Gore and all these people, but they're excused. The left excuses everybody on their side.
Now, let's get to something that's really big. AOC's chief of staff illegally moved $885,000 in campaign contributions off the books and into two private corporations that he owns. This is go to jail. Yes, this is go to jail stuff. This, I don't know if it's her boyfriend or not. His name is Sakat Chakrabarti.
Chakrabarti?
Or Chakrabarti. Which it sounds like something you might add to your coffee, but
well, maybe Adam Schiff would like to investigate that.
Well, this is my point. They funneled $1 million off the books. Now, the reason you would funnel the $1 million off the books is because the Democrats are claiming they don't take money from PACs, from big donors. This was money that came in from big donors, so they funneled it off the books so that it wouldn't show up in their campaign funds. This is go to jail stuff.
But they never go to jail.
They will get investigated. Do you think she will get investigated on that?
No, I don't. I have no confidence in people paying a price for doing bad things in Congress or anybody in the government. I really don't, unless you're way down the totem pole and you don't matter, and then they just use you as a scapegoat. It's just amazing what these people get away with, and they go before a committee that's in their own party that says, well, that's a bad thing you did, and we'll censor you somehow, and you never hear any more about it ever again. It's just, I think the American people are just so sick of this. Lord knows I am. And who's going to report this? Where did you get this? I guarantee you didn't get it from the mainstream media.
No. This was a complaint that was filed with the Campaign Finance Committee. This is an allegation made to the FEC.
By whom? Just an individual?
No, it was by one of the watchdog groups that filed the complaint. What they're asserting is, and the evidence seems to be pretty strong, that Chakrabarti established two PACs, one called the Brand New Congress PAC, and the other one called Justice Democrats PAC. Those sound so charming, don't they?
Benign.
Then they systematically transferred more than $885,000 in contributions received by those PACs to the Brand New Campaign LLC, which is a private corporation. This is where this gets dirty. And to the Brand New Congress LLC. Now follow with me, folks. What's happening here? We start a PAC called the Brand New Congress PAC. That becomes a tax-free entity. We then start a corporation called the Brand New Congress Corporation. So it sounds like it's the same thing, doesn't it? And then we start one called the Justice Democrats. And then we start another LLC with the same name. So we get people to put money into this PAC because PACs don't have to report their donors. Then we steal the money out of the PACs and we funnel it into a private corporation. Now the private corporation sends a bill to the PAC because the PAC has the right to spend the money. Guess what the money was spent on?
I have no idea.
Consulting fees.
Got to have those consultants.
Got to have consultants. And you know my definition of a consultant.
No.
It is someone who goes to a swingers convention, knows 55 ways to have sex, and didn't bring a partner. So, so anyways, just ruminate on that.
I'm so glad I don't think that way.
So think about what's happening here. $885,000 gets brought into a tax-free entity. I open up a for-profit business with the same name. I send a bill to my tax-free entity for consulting services for $885,000. And what happens to the money after that, Chuck? We don't know, because once the corporation, because the corporation's private, so once the corporation got the check, they could do whatever they wanted with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did it go
Well,
to campaign? Did it go to line somebody's pocket?
And again, we'll never know, because no one will ever check on it and no one will ever follow through. It'll be reported to a very few people like us who will point it out. It'll never go mainstream because they got to protect her. It'll never go Democrat Party because they have to protect her. The Democrats are amazing to me. And that is everything that they do that's illegal, everything that they do that's just atrocious, they blame on everybody else. They say, you do this, not us. And without the mainstream media, the Democrat Party literally couldn't exist. It literally couldn't exist.
Well, the evidence shows that AOC and Chakrabarty worked together. According to the complaint, they worked together and orchestrated an extensive off-the-books operation to make hundreds of thousands of dollars of expenditures off the books illegally.
Okay. This is like an article that you've read, right?
I've read many. There's lots of information on this.
Okay, lots of information. And where does it originate? What is the origin of this information, other than I know who wrote it and all that kind of stuff, but what kind of newspapers or articles, where did they come from?
Fox News has it. Daily Caller has it. Blunt Force Truth News has it. I mean, it's every place.
So you think what do you think will be the end result of finding all this out, if you had to guess?
I'm hopeful that
you're talking about the intellectual leader of the Democrat Party now.
I'm also considering the fact that we have a new attorney general, and I'm hoping we have a new attorney general who doesn't look the other way. Mm-hmm. Because the beauty of this is, as soon as Congress has to investigate themselves, nothing will happen.
Well, look here. Let me lay this out for you, because
this is outside of Congress's hands. This goes to the DOJ.
I understand that. Someone somewhere was a consultant to her, speaking of consultants, who said, we need to do this for a purpose, and this is our purpose, and this is how we can get around it. This is how we can get around it. This is completely legal, and you can't be held responsible for it.
Right. The consultant is her current chief of staff.
Okay. Whoever that person is has told her that this is beyond reproach. No problem.
Sparks Emerald says now she can afford a condo. I mean, remember back before she got into Congress, she couldn't afford to even go there.
Well, she wouldn't even stay in the one her parents owned. I mean, where all her mail went, she didn't even stay there, and they owned that, apparently.
But where I'm hopeful for this is this goes to the DOJ, not to Congress. Because if Congress had to investigate her, Congress will do nothing.
Oh, of course not.
Now, speaking of Congress, Chuck, is having a very serious, solemn moment right now.
As we speak?
As we speak, because they are working on a resolution that will condemn anti-Semitism.
Yeah, well, they should talk to this woman in Minnesota and the one in Michigan, too.
Well, let me tell you what a resolution is. If you don't know, a resolution in Congress is something like, and I'm not making this up, Congress will issue a resolution declaring somebody's 100th birthday an event. That's a congressional resolution. Mm-hmm. Or a congressional resolution can be declaring that this 200-year-old building is now historical.
So it's really basically nothing.
It's nothing. It has no teeth. It is not a legal document. It has no possible way to have an effect. It is nothing more than Congress saying X number of people vote to say we think this. Mm-hmm. Now, what happened to the Republicans? What did the Republicans do when Steve King was accused of saying racist remarks? They stripped him of all of his committees.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this is recent news. This isn't old news, right?
Right.
They stripped him of everything. We now have Ilhan Omar, who is 2 months in Congress, who is now on her third round of attacking Israel, of being an anti-Semite.
Well, wait a minute. I thought Trump was the anti-Semite.
Well,
I thought Republicans were the anti-Semites. How could this possibly happen on the left? The left are not anti-Semites, are they? Number one, most Jews are left. I think. Am I wrong?
You are correct. And that is a question that I literally had a conversation with a dear friend of mine who is Jewish. And for the life of him, he says, I cannot understand why so many of us support the Democratic Party. He is a Republican. He is a supporter of the president. And he goes, I don't understand it. But here's what we're sitting at right now. The Democratic Party, one, they are hypocrites. They will not do what the Republicans did, like with Steve King. They will not take this woman off the Foreign Relations Council, which she has no business being on the Foreign Relations Council. And the Democratic Party, correct me if I'm wrong, the Democratic Party has now basically stated, which they have in the past, they are the party of anti-Israel. They are the party of anti-Semitism, they are the anti-Semites. They're pro-Palestinian. They have been for a long time. Think about the treatment. Let's go back to Obama for a minute. Think of the way that Obama treated the Prime Minister of Israel.
Right.
He dismissed him. He was rude to him.
Oh, he tried to run a campaign against him when he was running again for Prime Minister.
Good point. Yes, he interfered in their election.
He absolutely did. No question about it.
But that's a bad thing if the Russians do it. It's a good thing if we do it.
Yeah, right.
It's okay when we
Nasty
interfere
Russians.
with an election. But those nasty Russians, they get in the middle of an election and there's a problem. At any rate, the Democratic Party has just come out and said they're anti-Israel. Now, I bring up a question to this, and I'm not trying to tie...
But yet they call everybody on our side Nazis, everybody. They've called me a Nazi. They've called you a Nazi. They called us racist Nazis. They've called Trump a Nazi. It's like as if they have no idea what Nazis did. I think that CNN and MSNBC should run a documentary on the Holocaust and what Nazi Hitler actually did during the Second World War, and then decide whether that's exactly where Trump is and where his voters are, because it's such a misconception of history, and it's just unbelievable.
But a lot of these people are Holocaust deniers.
Yeah, and it's loaded too. I mean, that is a loaded phrase. You're a Nazi is more than, nasty. It's loaded.
Well, all it does is it proves how Donald Trump is so incompetent he can't even be a good Nazi.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because he's a Nazi and he supports Israel. So see, he's so incompetent, he doesn't even know how to be a Nazi correctly.
Yeah, none of this makes any sense. So you have to understand, you have to believe, if none of this makes sense, you got to believe that the viewers and listeners and readers of mainstream media, whatever form it takes, have no idea what the hell they're reading or talking about, have no idea what the real world is about. They are led down the primrose path through propaganda, and they have no chance to ever come to a conclusion. It's kind of like this guy started to walk away. I mean, he was so invested. He said he cried for 2 hours when Trump won. He was one of those guys who was so invested in the left, so invested in Hillary, so invested in their talk and what they say, that he had no clue as to, he was totally, it's funny. The Bible talks about a veil being over your eyes and it'll be lifted at one time. These people literally have a veil over their eyes. They can't see anything for what it really is, for the clusters of hatred and disinformation that they're fed daily, hourly by the mainstream media. So, how do you possibly get to these people?
Well, think about, you've got these people like, we'll use Nancy Pelosi as an example. So Nancy Pelosi is supposed to be a fine Catholic girl, right?
Well, come on. I mean, they're hypocrites on steroids.
She's a fine Catholic girl who now supports not just abortion.
And by the way, I
fantasize.
I can't judge her heart and her mind. I can just judge her actions.
But she's fine killing babies. But regardless of that, what do we know about Israel? We know biblically that Israel is the apple of God's eye.
Yeah, right.
We know that blessing Israel brings blessings.
Right.
And we know that we have a Democratic Party that wants to turn on Israel.
Oh, they don't want to turn. They have turned on them.
And if we want to forget politics for a minute, if we want to find a biblical way to destroy this country, there's a good path right there. Forget about the socialism for a minute. We're spiritually heading down a path to ruin our country.
Let me ask you something, because I asked this question on Twitter, and they had many responses. It got several thousand responses. But no one has ever really asked this question to anyone of consequence that I'm aware of.
And you're still not, because you're asking me.
Well, so. I'm kind of, I tell you what, I'm kind of asking everyone who's watching us now and listening to us, and you as well, and Rusty, and anyone who knows, and I really want to know the answer. So the Democrats have decided, the left progressive Democrats have decided, through this pediatrician in Virginia and through Cuomo in New York, that they passed a law that a child can be born in the birth canal, and can be born and then die. They will kill it after it's born if the mother doesn't want the child. How do they kill it?
My understanding is.
Do you really know?
Yes, I've read what the procedure is.
Well, how can you read what the procedure is when no one has done it yet? They're just now talking about it.
Because I've read what they suspect would be the correct way to do it.
What did Gosnell do? He did this. He killed them after they were born, didn't he?
Yes, I believe Gosnell was cutting their spinal cord.
So you take this newborn healthy baby, hold it in your hands, and cut its spinal cord.
Correct.
That's how you kill a baby.
Correct.
Which we would consider murder under any other circumstances. If a woman is killed and is pregnant, it's a double murder because you killed the child as well.
Well, there's the other more humane way, Chuck, that they do it, and that is they just let it die. They don't feed it. They don't comfort it.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
Well, where do they put it? Do they put it in an incubator? Do they put it in a closet? Do they put it in a wrap it in a blanket to give it
and comfort the child
until it dies.
Okay, this is inhumane. Would you agree with that?
This is barbaric.
It's barbaric, absolutely barbaric. And we have Democrats all over the Northeast and the East, at least, and the Midwest and the South and the West, applauding this as if it was a solution. And
it's called women's health care.
It's murder. There's no question about it. It is murder. And no one, I literally can't believe this conversation has taken place in the reality of our government. And I just can't believe it. It's just
think about
beyond
this.
the pale.
How do you call this women's health care when the child has already been born?
Well, they call everything women's health care. It doesn't matter what it is. It's women's health care. I mean,
the woman's out of
is
the
not women's
equation
health
now.
care.
But I mean, as far as women's health care, she's out of the equation. The child's born. And it's still women's health care. It's women's right to reproductive, women's rights to their reproductive organ.
I don't know. There's a backlash against men, a backlash against fathers, a backlash against pregnant women, a backlash. It's a backlash against what is freedom. I know that a lot of women feel like a child is will encumber their life, and they don't have the freedom to do the things that they want to do. But there are other ways to make that choice other than to kill a child. I mean,
now, Chuck, these are the very same people. These are the exact same people which will put up a picket line to stop the execution of a mass murderer.
Well, on top of that, they're worried about children being held in cages on the border. Stop it. I mean,
well, you don't have to put them in a cage if you can kill them.
I mean,
then you won't have that problem.
It's so ridiculous. I'm not having fun today. I'm really angry. Can't help it.
But do you agree with me that these are the same people that will be picketing the execution of a 10-time murderer?
Well, sure. Yeah, you don't want to hold people responsible for what they do because you might make a mistake.
And you just nailed it. You said something that was so profound, you don't even know the level of your own profundity.
Wow. I'm a genius and don't know it.
And here's what it is. As conservatives, we want to be left alone to be personally responsible for our outcomes.
That's right.
As socialists, so if you think about it, we want freedom from government.
As socialists, we don't. As
Socialists, we want freedom from responsibility.
back up and say that again.
As conservatives, we want the freedom to be responsible for our own outcome. As a socialist, we want freedom from being responsible for our own outcome.
It takes
We're
a
both
village.
seeking-
It takes a village, so blame a village.
Well, in this case, it takes a village idiot. But if you think about it, both sides are, because you got to be a village idiot to be a socialist. If you think about it, both sides want freedom, but we want freedom to be responsible. They want freedom to not be responsible. And that lays into this. Why am I having an abortion? Is birth control that big of a mystery in this country today? Is there anyone out there who doesn't understand the mechanics of birth control?
Well, that I couldn't say because there are a lot of people who don't understand anything.
It doesn't
I mean,
seem
when
to
you're
me
15
like it's
or
that
14
difficult.
or whatever, who knows?
But it doesn't seem to me like it's that difficult in this day and age, in the day of the internet and Google and YouTube and whatever else, to understand contraception. So why do you need to go murder children when, and here's what it amounts to. You need to be able to murder children because you want to be irresponsible. You want freedom from personal responsibility. You want freedom from personal responsibility for your insurance, for your well-being, for your vacations, for your home, for childbirth. Socialism is about not being responsible. Prove me wrong.
No, I don't disagree with you. I really don't disagree with you. I doubt if anyone listening would either. We have any more questions, Rusty, before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I got a bunch here. Number one, 007 Lisa Jones says, what do you think about the ISIS girl? Should she be allowed back home to
No.
America?
No, period, no.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Why?
Yeah. Oh, come on, why? Just give me a break. Why?
Being born in America is a privilege. It is by God's grace that we were born in this amazing country. And when somebody is willing to give that up, to give that gift up and go join a terrorist organization.
What were we just talking about? Taking
Be
responsibility for your
responsible.
behavior.
Correct. Now be responsible for your choices.
So she
Next
can't live with her decisions. We can.
Dubuque, Iowa, do you have a question?
Dubuque, hello. All right. Godfather Maga says, this show is great. Hashtag Patriots Awakened.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Susie Q says, I didn't know Chuck was this funny. Must have been earlier in
not.
the show.
I've been funny today. Man, if this is me funny, you should see me on the weekend.
Dorian Rivers 7 says, Democrats are going crazy. I'm ashamed I was ever in that party. Were either one of you guys in that party in the past?
Yeah, my parents were. I come from Eastern Kentucky, which is, well, most people know it as Appalachia. And I was born and raised there by two very good parents. But most of the people in that area, West Virginia, southern West Virginia, northern Kentucky, and Kentucky, I guess as a whole state, were mostly Democrats. And my parents were no exception. They were Democrats as well. So probably, far less informed than I am and far less informed that most people are today. We really have a great privilege today, folks, of the internet and other conversations. We don't really have to depend on the mainstream media to decide, how we make our choices today. So a lot of people are far more informed, I believe, today, or at least certainly have the ability to be far more informed than my parents ever had. So,
but the Democrat Party of then was not the same as the Democrat Party of today either. You could have a conversation, right?
Well, that everybody keeps saying that the Democrat Party has changed. I don't think the Democrat Party has changed in 100 years. It's just that the thing that has changed is they're out of the closet.
Let me add something to you, Chuck.
Yeah.
Just let me add something right there.
I mean, my God, look at Woodrow Wilson, what he did, FDR, what he did. I mean, there's not much of a change. Go ahead.
100% of Republicans voted to end slavery. 23% of Democrats voted to end slavery.
Yeah.
94% of Republicans voted to give blacks citizenship.
Yeah, this is a big lie.
0% Democrats voted.
This is the big lie that's been perpetuated for 100 years or 50 years.
That's why I'm agreeing. I'm giving you backup that the Democratic Party's never changed.
No, it hasn't.
100% of Republicans voted for blacks to get the right to vote. Guess what percentage of Democrats voted for that?
I don't know.
0.
Oh, really? Yeah, but
0.
now they're very concerned that they don't have the right to vote as far as they're concerned when they do have the right to vote.
0 voted for it. I'm going to hit you one more topic here.
What did they say about Wisconsin? The last thing you heard about Wisconsin, and you heard it from Hillary Clinton, was that people of color were turned away from the polls because of the color of their skin. You know that's not true.
Well, Hillary, who was introduced at the Bloody Sunday convention as the duly elected president of the United States.
Yeah, I understand. She was thrilled with that.
Yes, and then they said that the presidency was stolen from her by the FBI, who I thought the FBI were the good guys, because last week they said the FBI were good people just for investigating the president.
But with all the minutia, let's not forget the headline, and that is she said that people of color were turned away from the polls because of the color of their skin, and they could not vote, and that is absolutely not true.
So I want to warn people about something right now. House Bill H.R. 1. Nancy Pelosi is very proud. This act is called the For the People Act. You just know.
It's not for the people. It's for a few people somewhere.
You know, when you hear something in Congress called the For the People Act, it's going to hurt, right?
People's Republic of Vietnam.
So the real name of the act, what it should be called, is the Ballot Harvesting Act. And here's their act. It's going to reform campaign finance. So how it does that is it's going to create a small donor pool matching fund system. So in other words, it means that if you're Bernie Sanders and Ocasio and a bunch of people make little $5 donations, now the government has to match those donations. So now we can use our tax dollars to put these people into office. Here's the next part of the For the People Act. It mandates that presidents and vice presidents have to release 10 years of their tax returns. That's a coincidence, Chuck. Don't laugh.
Oh, man.
That has nothing to do with President Trump.
Yes.
It creates an ethics code for the Supreme Court. This has nothing to do with Kavanaugh.
They don't have one now?
Apparently not. And it bars members of Congress from serving on corporate boards. Okay. Now, here's where it really gets fun. It's the new Voting Rights Act. Listen carefully. Allow citizens to register to vote online, because everyone knows that nothing illegal happens on the internet, and be registered automatically, and require the use of paper ballots in federal elections.
Okay, you and I know very well, Mark, we've talked about this. We had customers for our products who were hit with thousands and thousands of tweets and emails from 5 people, and they were very nervous about us being, their provider of commercials and things like that. And they would have thousands of people complaining about us, complaining about we were conservatives and they didn't have it. And it was 5 guys in a basement someplace.
Yeah, media matters.
Disguised as thousands and thousands of people. So what's to prevent them from doing that when you vote online? This is ridiculous.
You are a clever person. You're catching right on to this.
Yeah,
it also requires paper ballots. Now, here's the story. Well, we want paper ballots because we know those crafty Ruskies can't mess with the paper ballots, right? No, here's why you want paper ballots. The reason you want paper ballots is because the act says that you can no longer purge non-voters or dead people off of the voter rolls. So it prohibits purging voter rolls. It turns election day into a holiday. And what it means is I can simply do this. I can go register. I can open up the freaking phone booth or the phone book, go register 100 times under 100 different names to vote, go collect the paper ballots, fill them out, and drop them off because nobody's checking ID because it was online and it's a paper ballot.
You know, it's funny.
This is how the Democrats are trying to steal the presidency.
Most people don't even. The Democrats are always trying to steal power. I mean, that's what they're all about. And I'm sure the Republicans would probably like to do that too, but not with the enthusiasm the Democrats do. But here's the deal. They're always going to try to subvert the system, no matter what. I mean, they're always going to try to do it, and they get away with a lot of things. We all agree with that. It is depressing, and yet at the same time, it's good to be informed. It's good to stand up to them and let them understand we know what you're all about, we know what you're doing, and we're going to stop you any way we possibly can. So, you know, I mean, they're trying to get rid of the Electoral College, which is probably the most fair thing that ever happened with the elections, and that's it. But in the meantime, you know, we're finished today, folks. We've just done everything we can possibly do, except what Mark is getting ready to do before we say goodbye.
So what I'm going to do is, Chuck, I'm heading to Daytona Bike Week this weekend.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go hang out with all the crazy Harley riding motorcycle people.
Yep.
Everybody's wearing a gun. Half of the people are ex-military. And you know what? It's the safest place in the country. There's 100,000 people wearing guns. An armed society is a polite society.
All right. Say, excuse me. I'm sorry. I didn't hit your arm.
I got to tell you, I feel safer at a motorcycle rally than I do at, walking through Central Park. So at any rate.
When was the last time you walked through Central Park?
About a year and a half ago.
Oh, shut up.
I did. I bicycle. I actually took bicycles through it.
Okay.
So, folks, if you're at Daytona, if you're Bike Week this week, look for me. I will be the guy wearing the Make America a Republic Again hat. Be easy to spot me.
I see him now. Yes, there he is.
I will be there with some of the crew from here. If you want to get any of these great hats or the I love my country, but I fear my government t-shirt, or the ever popular Blunt Force Truth coffee mugs, suitable for putting your coffee in, you can get all of these at bluntforcetruth.com.
Say goodbye, Mark.
Goodbye, Mark.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place, Blunt Force Truth.